Hello and welcome to my channel. We are looking at a little piece called Dance. I'm going to go ahead and play the piece all the way through for you, and then we'll have a quick discussion afterwards to help you as you begin your practice. So you may be listening to this and thinking, this doesn't sound like the dance music that I'm used to hearing today. Well, this composer lived in the 1600s. So this is quite a few centuries ago, but music is a living type of history. And so we get to enjoy it and bring it to life even after the composer has lived his life and moved on, passed away. It's just still a beautiful piece that we enjoy and bring to life. So I wanted to go through a couple of ideas with you. And we have the left hand. As you saw on the recording, we keep playing this interval of the fifth, G to D, and it just keeps coming back as a nice steady rhythm. So if you'll join me on the piano, you notice that if you're looking at the G below middle C, we're an octave below that. So we're on the lowest line of the bass clef. And I'm going to make sure that my elbow is slightly away from my body, my wrist is nice and level, supporting that fifth finger here, and you've got also the thumb playing on the side. Be cautious that you don't lower the wrist over time as you play through this piece. As the notes repeat, you might get a little weary and just kind of lay it down. Please don't do that. That does affect the quality of your sound, and also you're not able to support so well at your fingertips. So right hand, as you see on the score, we have quite a bit more activity that we'll do. So first of all, I'm just going to walk you through a few of the melody lines and help you get some of these notes sorted out. So in measure 1, we have a small melody snippet that comes in right here. So you notice right off my thumb is on G above middle C, and I'm in this G 5-finger position. I want to point out that this piece is designed so that we bring back these little melody snippets several times throughout this piece. So measure 1 and measure 3, right hand, it's the same notes. Isn't that wonderful? Also at measure 9 and measure 11, you will find those notes come back again. So the big picture is the first line and the third line, yep, you guessed it, are exactly the same. So it's a buy one line, get one free sort of musical structure. It's fantastic. So on a smaller level, I'm looking just measure to measure to find patterns that repeat exactly, and that helps you kind of break down these longer pieces. This may be a long piece for you, maybe your first big piece, and try to get it to something that you can handle at a smaller level. So the second idea is measure 2. We have that C walking down to the G. And it actually happens every line, measure 6 and also measure 10. We have exactly that same set of notes. So you get it 3 times there. Also at the end of the first line and the third line, so this is measure 4, and at the final measure of the piece, we have almost the same idea, C, A, G. So we leave out that B, that third finger, but it's still a descending line there. So those are the first 2 ideas. And then on the second line, we get this dotted rhythm in the right hand. So I wanted to go over that. You have a dotted quarter note followed by an 8th note. So to count that correctly, we'll count 1 and 2 and. So that dotted half note is 1 1/2 beats. And then we have an 8th note, the second part of that beat. Oh, how do we count that? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you feel those 8th notes coming there on the third beat. So the pattern there is going to be repeated. Measure 5 and measure 6, measure 5 and measure 7 is exactly the same. So those are 3 melody snippets that I've pulled out that are recycled throughout this piece. So if you're struggling with reading notes, I would suggest you pause the video here, go back and work on that right hand through those 3 areas I just discussed until you get comfortable playing it hands alone first. All right, and so moving forward, the other big idea for the right hand is that we're seeing these long, curvy lines on top of the note. So those are called slurs, and they mean that you play smoothly, connected. So legato is the official musical term for that. We often sing legato. Da da dee, ba da da, dee da da dum. That's legato right there. Our usual standard idea of singing, a lot of that has to do with legato. On the piano, if you go down very slowly, play the first note of the measure, and then hold it until you've already played the second note, and then release. So again, play, hold through the A, then release. Just giving you a couple of spots to see the idea. So at a very slow tempo, you can see that I'm actually releasing the first finger a little bit after the second note is played. So the piano in the acoustic form has hammers that strike the strings, and that creates the sound. Striking with a hammer, that's percussion. So we create the sound, the idea of legato, by letting go of the first finger a little slowly after we press the second. So we kind of create that connection. The other way that we can help the right hand do this legato sound is to use a little bit of the wrist and the elbow. So I'm going to be very cautious here because this piece was written in the early stages of music history for the western part of the world. So we're going to not do the full out legato that we embrace in the Romantic era often. We're still going to have nice tall fingers, but we'll just use a little bit of an aid with the wrist and elbow like this. And before I change the camera, remember that the shoulder will stay nice and relaxed. You don't have to raise the shoulder or have any tension in the shoulder here. Okay, right elbow slightly away from the body so that your 4th and 5th finger is supported, and we'll play through. So kind of swinging back and forth, B, A, B, left to right. And then as you ascend, the arm goes away from the body, towards the body. And so forth. So you get the idea of being able to see that and hear what's going on. So using just a little bit of the arm, a little bit of the wrist to help you. And lastly, as you see the end of each slur, so it connects several notes underneath that curvy line. When the slur ends, it is a small release of the wrist. So it's kind of like a singer taking a breath and then gathering another breath for the next sentence that they're going to sing or the next set of lyrics. So in the hand, you'll see here on the right that I'm going to take my left pointer finger and put it underneath my right wrist. And then I'm gently going to just nudge that wrist up. You notice my fingers are slowly leaving the keys, with the 3rd finger being the last one to leave the key. And then the whole hand disengages. So you start by lifting the wrist gently, and then all of the fingers come off, the 3rd being the last. Another idea is gently, it's like a balloon being tied to the wrist. So as you play that in context, you notice I'm cautious not to create a staccato effect at the end of each phrase. You could do. So sometimes students will artificially do that, thinking that they're creating that end of the phrase, when in fact, they're creating a clip, a shortened sound there. So is this a technique you'll gather in one day? Maybe in 1 week? Well, probably not to perfection, but it's something that you want to start working with, and over time, you work that right hand alone and get those ideas under your fingers. So first, the correct notes in both hands, finding the correct placement of the fingers and the rhythms. And then secondly, we're talking about the articulation, playing legato in the right hand. And then I'll finish up the final stages of learning any piece is adding in the dynamics. So if you're still struggling to get notes learned, to figure out where your notes are on the piano, I wouldn't worry about dynamics just then. You got enough to worry about. But once those are under your fingers and you feel confident you can play with a steady beat without stumbles, then you're ready to add the icing on the cake, is what I say. So the dynamics there, we have on the first and the last line a repeat sign. So you're going to play each line twice, and then you'll have forte, a nice big loud sound as you heard on the recording. And then when you come back, we're going to just vary that repeat by playing it softer. That gets our interest and the interest of our audience too. So playing the same thing over and over with no change of volume can be very tiring and boring after a while to the ears. On the second line, we're going to start with mezzo forte, medium loud, and then we're going to move to piano 2 measures later at measure 7 and end with the decrescendo. So the end of the second line gradually getting softer. If you're already piano at measure 7 and you want to get softer at measure 8, that's pianissimo, that's pretty quiet. So think about the level of sound you want for forte, the level of sound you want for mezzo forte, and then the bottom end of that, the softer end, would be your piano sound, and then you can build up from there, mezzo forte, forte, piano going down, pianissimo. So those are things that you'll try out on an acoustic instrument or even a good keyboard with weighted keys, whatever your situation may be. So I think this will be something that you can work towards and grow in as a student. And I really hope that you can take these ideas and put them into practice and have it ready for your next lesson. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for tuning in.